All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at something just absolutely fascinating: the Roman Empire's dual obsession with relentless, calculated organization. On one side, you have their unstoppable efficiency out on the battlefield, and on the other, this masterful, honestly, kind of terrifying grip on cultural control right in the heart of the capital. We're going to explore the staggering logistical brilliance of the Roman machine, both inside and out. It's the ultimate question, right? How exactly did one ancient empire manage to conquer the known world, and then turn right around and entertain the masses with the exact same level of brutal efficiency? As you'll see, the very same engineering genius that let Roman armies crush their enemies across the globe was directly repurposed to pacify their own citizens back home.
Section 1. Anatomy of a legion, the building blocks of conquest.
Okay, let's start with their outward expansion. To really grasp Rome's macro power, we gotta zoom all the way into the microscopic building blocks. It all starts with the contuberneum. That's just 8 men sharing a single tent, a mule, and a millstone. They cooked together, they fought together. Now, you take 10 of those and boom, you get a century of 80 men. Put 6 centuries together, you've got a cohort of 480 men. And finally, stack 10 cohorts and you've built a massive legion of over 5,000 soldiers. It's mathematical, compounding power. A Roman general wasn't just commanding a mob, he was directing a highly organized, modular force.
Section 2. The moving war machine, keeping the legion alive. You see, a legion wasn't just 5,000 guys with swords. Actually, it was more like a moving, breathing city. And cities, they need an immense, highly bureaucratic logistics train just to survive out in hostile territory. When they were on the march, roughly 80% of the living beings were humans, but a staggering 20% were animals. To put that into perspective, we're talking about an estimated 1,600 mules required just to haul the equipment, the tents, the artillery, all the supplies. This whole moving city would stretch out for nearly 2 kilometers down the road.
Now, to keep this massive moving city running, you needed a gigantic support network. You had around 1,400 military slaves pitching tents, scribes literally tracking every penny of a soldier's pay deductions, and the fabulieri, their engineering corps. But here's what's absolutely crucial: the medical staff. How did Rome's medical miracle keep its killing machine alive? Well, the Roman legionary on the front lines actually had a better chance of surviving a wound than almost anyone else in the ancient world. The secret was their mobile hospitals, the valedicudinarium. They had a dedicated staff of specialized doctors called medici, about 20 assistants, and real 2-horse ambulance carts racing around to save the fallen right on the battlefield. They didn't just throw men into a meat grinder, they ruthlessly preserved their fighting assets.
Section 3. Constructing the ultimate arena, the Colosseum.
So what happens when you bring that exact same ruthless logistical mindset back home for cultural control? Well, you build the Colosseum. Emperor Vespasian strategically dropped it right on the drain site of the tyrant Nero's old private lake, kind of giving the land back to the public. And the construction? Pure military efficiency. 240,000. That is the estimated number of carts loaded with heavy travertine stone that an army of laborers dragged 20 miles from the quarries in Tivoli, straight to the center of Rome. They literally built a dedicated road just for this one job.
All of that stone was used to create an impossible capacity: 70,000. That is how many spectators this massive amphitheater could hold. It is still the largest amphitheater ever built in human history, no question.
But, how do you get 70,000 ancient Romans inside without a massive riot? 80. The Colosseum featured 80 ground-level entrances. And this perfectly illustrates their genius. 76 of those entrances were numbered for the general public, syncing up with a strict ticket system to guide citizens directly to their seats. Their crowd management was honestly just as advanced as the multi-million-dollar sports stadiums we go to today.
Section 4. The hierarchy of Rome, stratification by stone.
Let's be totally clear about what this building actually was. It wasn't just a place for bloody entertainment. It was a highly engineered, dynamic machine deliberately built to enforce social hierarchy. When you walked in, you were quite literally put in your place. Starting at the lowest tier, right up against the bloodshed, you've got the senators and the absolute elite. Moving up, you find the Roman knights, then the wealthy citizens, the poorer citizens, and then way up at the very top, baking in the heat on cheap wooden seats, were the slaves and the lowest classes. The architecture itself was basically a physical map of your exact value in the Roman world.
And the stakes inside that architecture? Literally life and death. Look at the 2 grand entrances that led directly onto the arena sand. Over on the east, you've got the Gate of Life. This is where gladiators would parade out in full glory and, if they were incredibly lucky, exit victorious. But on the west, the Gate of Death, the exit exclusively used to drag away the bloody corpses of men and beasts. Just a stark, visceral, physical dichotomy of the realities happening inside those walls.
Section 5. The engineering of spectacle, from sky to underground.
To see how they manipulated the environment to control the crowd, let's do a mental cross-section of the arena, starting all the way up in the sky. Sitting in the blazing Mediterranean sun all day would be miserable, right? Well, Rome solved that by rigging 240 massive wooden masts around the very top edge of the Colosseum. These supported the velarium, which was a colossal, retractable canvas awning. And because it was rigged just like a ship's sails, it was operated by hundreds of actual sailors drafted directly from the Roman Navy. I mean, how cool is that?
And speaking of the Navy, get this, in the early days of the arena, they could actually flood the entire floor using underground aqueduct channels. In just a matter of hours, they'd turn a dry sand pit into a lake to host naumachia. These were full-scale, historic naval battles, fought to the death by condemned prisoners, happening right in the middle of downtown Rome.
Eventually, though, they stopped the flooding so they could build this, the hypogeum. Think of this as the literal engine room of the Colosseum. It was this poorly ventilated, pitch black, sweltering, two-story underground maze right beneath the arena floor. This was the backstage area where hundreds of slaves, gladiators, and wild beasts just waited in the intense heat for their moment up on the sand.
What's literally mind-blowing about the hypogeum is the complex machinery they used down there. They had 28 original lifts built into the structure. Below ground, teams of 8 workers would physically push massive wooden capstans, think of them like giant turnstiles, winding up ropes through pulleys to hoist heavy cages up these shafts. The cages would trigger hinged trapdoors up top, making lions, bears, or armed gladiators just pop out of nowhere like magic. It was grueling, back-breaking manual labor perfectly coordinating a flawless theatrical illusion.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that both the Legion and the Colosseum were really just two sides of the exact same imperial coin. Rome maintained its power through brutal efficiency and highly calculated spectacle. The army conquered enemies outward to secure wealth and borders. Meanwhile, the Colosseum entertained and distracted the citizens inward, providing the classic bread and circuses to keep the masses docile and totally supportive of the emperor.
It's super easy for us to sit back today and marvel at the incredible logistics, right? The medical team saving soldiers on the front lines, the wild mechanical trapdoors under the arena. But it leaves us with a pretty provocative question. We've mapped out the architecture of Rome's empire, but what invisible systems, what incredible logistics and unceasing spectacles do modern empires use to project power and entertain us today? Something to think about the next time you step into a massive stadium. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.